If there's something strange in the bodybuilding neighborhood, who you gonna call? Steve and Mike. And if there's something weird and it don't look good, who you gonna listen to? Steve and Mike. Da 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 da. It's the improvement season. Da da da. How you get? How's it going, Steve?
Was that the same as last time, or was that a riff on last time?
It
A
was a
condensed.
not the last time, the time before.
Jeez, I can't keep up with these.
This is like it's like Instagram when sometimes you can just repost content after like a few after a little
Yeah,
bit of time. That's what I'm gonna do.
you should just record 10 off air, and then I'll just edit them in every time, and we just rotate, rotate, rotate.
It could
Oh
be like
dear.
proper studio quality, maybe.
Well, you have to get yourself to a studio, Mike.
I know.
Or set up your own little one at home somehow, as best you can. But yeah, your room's still looking too clinical and hospital like.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do something about this. Although there is the trophies.
Yeah, apparently hospitals have that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
No, I'm good. I don't know if you asked me how I am, but I'll
Yeah.
continue. Yeah, I feel good. Can't really think of anything. It's funny. Whenever I've had conversations with people who are asking how I am, I know this is really bad. Not really bad, but I feel like it's bad. I don't know why. But immediately my thoughts just go to talking about Ada. Like I literally think no one's asking me because they care how I am, because why would they care how I am? Like clearly I'm fine. They're asking because they know Ada's not well at the moment. So anyway, but I am good. Like I feel just, yeah, I'm surprised how good I feel in myself. In fact, I think there may have even been a little bit of an uptick in well-being over the past couple of weeks. I can't think to as why, whether it's just a case of like I'm like getting towards a year in a surplus away from stage, although it's not quite that long, but it's almost a year since we went to the Netherlands. So it's just more time away from calorie deficit, more body weight being gained. And so I'm just feeling a little bit, I don't know, extra positive in terms of just off-season physiology, that sort of thing. And yeah, I just feel on top of a number of things, but also really not on other things, actually, in a weird way. Don't know if you ever have this, Mike, but obviously MRV is a great description, right? People think of maximal recoverable volume as like a way to think about their training volume, but you can apply that to other areas in life. And I always, unfortunately, or not always, I very often feel like I'm letting some people down. And obviously you have priorities that you have to tick off. But I'm like, man, I wish I could be a bit more be better at communicating with, I don't know, it might be family, for example, at the moment. Like I wish I was, next week we're meant to be going away, we are going away for my dad's 70th birthday.
Yeah.
He turned 70 just last week. So that's awesome.
Oh.
And this has been booked in for 2 years, Mike. But obviously Ada is unwell. And so that just puts a whole new kind of variable in the mix. And like I wanted to commit to be able to be there for the whole time. And we have to come back on Monday evening. So and unfortunately we have a commitment on Friday that we can't not do, because it's like it's higher priority than the holiday, put it that way. So we're literally going to have to leave Saturday morning and leave like Monday afternoon, and be there like one full day basically. And I'm just like, God. The unfortunate thing is it was also meant to be a holiday for us because we haven't had like a break since the Maldives, which is a long time ago, even though it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it's like getting towards like 20 weeks or something since then.
Yeah, it's funny because bringing this also a little bit back to bodybuilding. But I remember you said to me once where, things are always works in progress. Like you might find like training is in a really, really great spot. Nutrition's all right, but maybe, sleep's not great, or vice versa. Maybe sleep's great, but nutrition could be a little bit better. And, it's that perfectionist mindset in a way. We've just got to do the best that we can, except, that some things are always just going to be a work in progress, and keep moving forwards.
Yeah, the other thing, so I feel like I'm letting down my family with that, although I don't know if other people feel this way who might be able to relate. I've obviously got 3 sisters. 2 of them have multiple children. So I'm like, it's more about them than it is me. And I don't know if that's something I think if I said that to my family, they'd be like, no, 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 don't you dare think that way. Like, especially my mum would be like, no, no, no. Like, I still, like, you are my child, whatever. But I'm like,
Mm.
it's more about them than it is me. Also, Ada's just going to be, man, she's just, there might be an Ada section briefly, but she's just becoming a little bit of a nightmare in the evenings. I'll put it that way.
Mm.
And the other thing I feel like I'm letting down is it's funny. I was going to say to you, like, I feel good on top of things like, for the podcast, I've got like 5 episodes preloaded, like recorded, scheduled to go all the way through till almost the end of September now. I've got scheduled to go. I think that I just scheduled and edited the one with Brandon for
Yeah.
accepting his IFBB Pro card. So that was a cool discussion.
Oh, can't wait.
And I was meant to record one tomorrow, but I think that the individual is going to have cancelled on me from our discussions. This might be the third time or something they've done that. But hey, this is why I record many in advance. But the problem, I was going to say, I feel on top of things because, like, hey, I'm posting every day on Instagram. Like, clients going well. I've had several consultations this week. I had a couple of sign-ups as well, which is awesome. Have some like new competitors and things going forward, which is great. And I was like, but I know the thing I've been slacking on, and I allowed this because you have priorities, right? You have to prioritize, is the vlogs. I haven't done my bi-weekly vlog. The listeners might not know, but that's what I try and adhere to myself. Upload a vlog every other week. And if they're not subscribed to the members site, they might think that's happening because those vlogs are still coming out bi-weekly, but it's to the latest ones go to the members site. I just haven't had either the time, or it hasn't been the priority, or I haven't had the mental capacity or the thought. As you probably know, Mike, even for Instagram, when you're thinking of content to do, like that might take half the time of the whole production of the content. You think about content for an hour and then you make the thing for an hour, whatever it is. Similarly with YouTube videos, like you can't just off the cuff do them. You have to think about what do I want to do it about. It's just nothing that really came to mind. And I was just like, man, I feel too fatigued to be able to do it, but I do want to get back into those because they tend to go down well too. But anyway, that's my big ramble of an update of how things are.
No, but do you know what? It's interesting because these are things that we all inevitably encounter. And to your point on the vlogs, like the other big thing is editing. Like you edit these podcasts, obviously this one and the proper Revive Stronger one. You edit your vlogs, which takes time. Because I was actually watching Alberto Nunez's vlog a bit last night, and I didn't realize, but they've got an editor. But again, just having that extra person to offload it just saves a little bit of time, but you do all of that, which I don't think a lot of people realize.
Yeah, and that's also not necessarily something I have to do, but it's figuring out how to offload it. It's something I actually chatted with Charlotte. I was like, I need to find more time somehow and like outsource these things. But I think the editor that they have at 3DMJ is Brandon, I believe is his name. And so he's like, they know him, like he's been part of 3DMJ for a long time. I think they coached him as well. So I just don't have that immediate contact in mind. Because I would love to invest in and actually if anyone's listening who has a contact to provide us for editing, but particularly I would like to get someone to do more regular vlogs with, so like professionally record me, because part of the problem is, again, setting up camera, recording, all that good stuff. Like to have someone who's outside in recording you, the quality is just so much better than my vertical filmed footage on my phone, because I typically record it for Instagram style content. So if there is someone in London, like I would love to commit to like once a month doing a more professional, higher quality vlog like that. And then if it's once a month, I can kind of think of content ahead of time to make sure I do it. The great thing with having someone outside is you have to commit to someone else too.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's my own, it's just like, oh, I have to record it and then I have to do everything. Whereas, if someone's like, you're paying them once a month to record this thing, you would do that and commit to it. So, and then the thing that they could save you with is they could pull reels from that content. That's what I would like. So like one long form vlog for like YouTube and member site, and then maybe pull four reels from it. That'd be amazing. But yeah, it's finding that person to be able to do that. I did something similar with Gordon Greenhorn, but he's not really London based. I don't think he really does that sort of thing so much anymore. So I want someone local because I just think it's easier that way and more consistent. Whereas if someone has to travel, like we had Stephen who helped us
Yeah.
with at the cut, but for him to I forget where he's traveling from, but I think it's just a bit more friction than I think is worth it for them.
Mm.
Whereas if I can develop a relationship and have you see like YouTubers, or I'm trying to think who comes to mind. But they have people who they know. Oh, I follow Star Wars Theory,
Yeah.
and he has his vlogs. He has like his mate is his vlogger, and they have like a really tight relationship. And it's just like you can talk to that person behind the camera, and you like. I almost got that with Gordon too because we're friends. I
Mm.
like that sort of thing. Anyway, I'm riffing and just thinking and all thoughts, but that's something that I'd like to do in future because I think it would just be a great investment.
And you know that when life settles down in other areas, you'll be able to pick that back up again. And it's
Sure.
just, again, comes back to priorities again. It's like, right, the big priorities, they need to get taken care of. So this other stuff, we've just got to let it go. And it's literally just that. We've got to let it go.
Yeah.
Like you always say, it's like give yourself grace. And for me, that also means like letting go.
How are things on your end, Mike? I can see you've had a trim. The
Yeah.
beard is trimmed up too.
Yeah. So I was it Sunday. I'd had enough. It was just getting too much. Again, do you remember Furbies?
Yes.
I felt like a Furby, like just this round ball, like some Hagrid Furby type creature. So I went to the barbers and got a trim. And again, just like I said last time I got it, I was like, oh, I just feel fresher. And I just feel like a bit of a new man. I'm like, Mike, why did you leave it so long again? So again, a nice reminder on my part.
I miss it. I miss that self-care element. Part of me really doesn't miss it because of the anxiety behind, like part of me getting the haircut all the time wasn't just this self-care. It was a case of like trying to hide behind this haircut because if I didn't have it done I was getting it every other week. I'd be like, my hair looks terrible. It looks disheveled. I need to get it cut again. But I liked the like process of going and getting it, feeling fresh, all that stuff. I kind of get it from shaving my head, but it's not quite the same. And still like trying to line up my beard and stuff. I actually have been meaning to like let my beard grow out so I can go to the barbers and let them line it up for me.
Yeah.
Because you probably do the same. Like, you get your beard trimmed, right?
Yeah.
So they line it up, and then you basically try and maintain those lines. But I think somewhere it's been obviously I can't remember the last time I got a haircut. Not this year, so it's been a long time, right? Or no, it was not this year. I got it cut at the end of last year. So I've tried to maintain the lines they've given me, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing a great job. Like, just Anyway,
But they like if you go to like maybe a Turkish barbers or something, they've got like the single blade and they give you like the little cream and then like they do the little, the fine, knitting of it and stuff. And it's just, you're right, it is just self-care. And I think I mentioned it before, but the barbers that I go to, like as part of the service, it's like you get hot towels. So before you get your beard trimmed, it's like they put a hot towel on your face and you're just there going like, ah, this is nice. It's really good.
but I can see you haven't invested in new headphones yet. What are you doing in the gym for music at the moment? You
Oh,
doing
right.
the over-ear ones, or have you got new ones?
I've got the over-ear ones. So
How do you find training in those?
not too bad. Occasionally it will, I might bump on them or something, or it might be a bit cumbersome. But so far it's been okay.
Just because I know I have these ones right here. I literally bought them because I was like, oh, they'd be even better for the podcast because they're better at noise cancelling and they're super comfy. But I get way too hot. Whenever I record a podcast episode, I'm like, especially if I'm like peak mass, I'm like, I'm going to sweat. So I can't wear those at all. I get really hot. But in the gym, like I get super hot. Like I could wear those maybe deep in prep, but when I'm not. And then also these ones, they're probably a bit bigger than yours. Then they're definitely not made for the gym. Like they're quite cumbersome and they'd probably fall off. I've seen your ones, they're a bit smaller.
Yeah, tiny bit smaller, but they're all right. I do find sometimes that if I'm training, like I'll be like, oh, I'm a bit hot, maybe a tiny bit clammy, but I've not been at the stage yet where I'm like, oh, this is uncomfortably warm.
Because You haven't had to wear them whilst it's been the heat wave just yet, have you?
Not like the proper, but I also train in the morning, so it's never peak heat either.
True. Yeah. There's meant to be a heat wave actually coming. They said it was coming tomorrow, but I think it's pushed. It looks like it's not going to kick in till like maybe Monday or something. The third one we've had here in the UK. It's crazy. So,
I heard
uh,
that. And you
yeah,
know what? I was saying this to someone yesterday or the day before that we've actually had a very good summer, I feel. Like it's consistently being just warm, and really nice. I think we've had a good one this year.
we have. I think it was maybe a couple of days ago was like my perfect morning where it was clear blue skies, there was not much wind, and it was cool. And it was just like you could wear shorts and t-shirt and it would be like nice in the sun, maybe a bit chilly in the shade. That I love.
Yeah.
Heat waves I actually don't enjoy at all. Like there's no part of me that enjoys the heat wave. It's so inconvenient.
You just can't think. You're just kind of sitting there or you're doing something and you're sweating on the spot. And all I would say is you just got to be thankful that you've got your own clothes that you can wear, or you can just go topless when you're working.
Yeah, that is definitely handy. Yeah, if I was in your situation, it reminds me actually when I went and got my tattoo done, and it was a heat wave at that time, and that's not good. You don't want to be sweating when you're getting a tattoo for obvious reasons. But he had an air conditioning unit in his room, which was like if he did not have that, just he would have been destroyed, and I would have been destroyed. Like it would have been a complete mess. So yeah, if I had your setup, I might have to like just be like, we've got to buy an air conditioning unit just to shove in here.
Yeah, literally. It was really hard in the clinic because you've obviously you've got to wear clothes clearly, and but the clothes as well are just it's not like gym kit. They're a little bit more warmer, shall we say, and
More
it's just
dense.
more
Yeah.
dense exactly, and it's just like gets quite tough at times.
How's the recovery going though? We can see you weren't in a sling last week actually, I don't think. So you've been out of the sling for a while.
Yeah, so it's been going good. So, from the last episode that we recorded, the day after, I went to the fracture clinic again, which would have been my 2 week follow up. And the fracture was still healing. It was still undisplaced, which is exactly what we wanted. So they were just like, yep, we're happy. I'm going to see them again, essentially 6 weeks post injury. Again, just to double check everything's healing right. But otherwise, they said, carry on, be cautious with overhead movements, but otherwise, keep doing what you're doing essentially. Um,
Lovely.
and and it's been feeling really good. Obviously, still staying conservative, but equally, I'm feeling that if if my body is giving me the signs that it's okay, then I'm kind of moving into it. And today was, well, I would say consistently sort of today, yesterday, it's been feeling again, it feels like it's like that big jump forwards again, like the body's adapted and I've made a big jump forwards because I was able to put pressure. It almost felt 50-50 through both hands, whereas before it was like, oh, I don't like this, or the body doesn't like this. And then today, I was just feeling like the arm and shoulder were feeling really good. And I just thought, do you know what? I'm just going to pick up the dumbbell. Felt fine. And I was able to use the same load for one arm dumbbell rows on both sides. And I was
Damn.
like, well, this is good. The reps were different. I was able to get a lot
Okay.
more on my right. They weren't the same, but I was just really pleased that the shoulder felt perfectly fine. And I was able to use the same load. So I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, you're just gonna have to. It's one of those where hopefully every week you just see improvements, and you'll just have to slowly, steadily take on what you can. If you slightly overdo it, pull back and adjust, like any sort of injury, as it were. And like you said, you just don't want to get ahead of yourself and cause yourself to take like multiple steps backward and that sort of thing. And I think knowing that we have this mesocycle running and being like, right, we're not really going to reintroduce stuff till we've ended it, like pulled
Yeah.
back and then kind of build back into things, I think is good. Have you noticed anything visually with that arm? Like, does it look visually different to you? I know there's bruising and things like that, but does it visually anything like, does it look flat, smaller, or is it like holding up pretty well?
Do you know what? Because I have been trying to pay attention to that, and I don't think it does look different, to be honest with you. Um, it like occasionally I've thought, oh, maybe the left side delt looks a bit flatter in, it doesn't look quite as full as the right hand side. But at the moment, that would be about it.
Wow.
I don't have the mobility because it's funny because yeah, what was it on the weekend? I thought, can I do a front double bicep? I just about made it, but not properly. But I can't do a front lat spread yet. I just don't have the mobility in the shoulder just quite yet. But from a muscular perspective, I don't think even in the chest doesn't look any different, which I'm super happy about.
Yeah, that's awesome and surprising. I would have thought like people get worried about getting a bit flat during their deload week, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you've had multiple weeks of not being able to load that side really. And
Mm.
so actually visually it's still holding up really well is a great sign because I think that's something that I would struggle with is seeing it. If I could visually see it atrophying and getting smaller, I'd be like, oh my God, like that's hard to like see
Mm.
that. But I wasn't expecting such a positive response. That's great. That's awesome news. It
Yeah.
goes to show what you've been doing has been really helping.
Yeah, I put a big emphasis on like I really do feel like the cross education helped. Like even in that first week that we went back, I feel that that helped me so much. I think neurologically it kept my body switched on, and I feel that really helped with everything. It allowed me to start moving it a little bit more. We were able to integrate a little bit of BFR, and I think just through the combination of all those things that we've done, I've probably just been able to hold on to it. And I mean, in realistic terms, what is it like coming up to, well, it's 3 weeks today. It's 3 weeks today. So I guess the reality is it's not that long. So even though it would have been, the muscles might have looked flat, if I've been using it, even moving it, hopefully I've been able to retain it,
Yeah.
retain the muscle tissue.
And you've obviously not been in a calorie deficit, keeping protein high.
Yeah.
Something I don't think we spoke on air about here, but we obviously spoke about was the fact that you were sleeping like ridiculous numbers of hours initially, which it's so cool to see that in some ways because it's like you wouldn't be able to just sleep 10 hours like out of anywhere. Like you needed a severe injury to force your body to be like, okay, this is where we grow and repair the best. Let's stay in like switch off mode for longer.
Definitely. And it's just definitely been one of those things which has just helped be a catalyst for changing it. Because, like, you know me well, Steve, like, sleep is always the one thing that I probably struggle with consistently in terms of just getting that time. But yeah, since the injury happened, it's like, nah, body says no, you're sleeping. So, and it's been great. I've just had nights of like 10, 11 and a half hours sleep, just solid.
Yeah,
Um,
nuts.
yeah, it's been great. What are we coming out of?
Random question, Mike. I don't know what made me think of this. I think it's because I knew we were talking today, and I recently have been enjoying, this coffee shop actually, because we got one when you came and we went to do the Comic Con, the Blueprint, which is
Yeah.
like a 5-minute walk literally from my house. And I love their coffee. It's really nice. And I have been treating myself every Friday to like go down, walk there and get one. In addition to my Monster, a Monster is like a standard. I have one Monster a day. It just doesn't go. I'm not reliant on it per se. I think if you removed it, it would be fine. It's just become a habit that I enjoy and I have no reason to get rid of it. But I wanted to ask you, Mike, because there was a time where you were experimenting with trying different coffees. When was the last time you had a coffee out? Has it been a
Ooh,
while?
probably when we went to the anime. No,
No,
was it?
can't
It
have been
can't have
that
been that
long.
long. I can't remember.
Literally, when even was that?
That was in February or something like that, wasn't it? I genuinely can't remember. I was supposed to get a coffee when we were at the WMBF first timers, but they didn't get me one in the end. They missed me out. But
So you didn't go
uh,
and get yourself one.
I didn't go and get myself one. I had a Monster instead. I No, I don't think I've had a coffee out since then. How bad's that?
It's not necessarily bad. It's just, again, it comes back to the haircut type of thing. It's like, are you unnecessarily restricting yourself? Or like, yeah, you missing out on enjoying something. So for me, for example, like I would consider it bad if I had a coffee out every day because I'm like, that's just excessive spending. When I think about it, like whatever it is, £4 a day across 5 days, like 7 days a week, across a month, suddenly that comes to thousands of pounds across the year where I'm like, wow, I probably could have spent that better or saved it. But at the same time, like earn a living, I want to enjoy life. If a coffee gives me like a big, I don't know, like I enjoy it enough, like I think it's worth doing, similar to getting your hair cut maybe more frequently or whatever. Like it gives you that sense of, you have to kind of find your balance, right? So if you're like in a saving mode, I get it, like so on and so forth. But yeah, it's just something to think about. It's like I get stuck, we all get stuck in our ways, right? So I was just interested to know if you'd got back stuck in your ways or if you were continuing to venture out and try things.
Yeah, that's definitely where I probably need to get better. I guess the what I was coming into my head as you were saying that is it is out of my way to get a coffee
I was
because
nowhere close.
no, I'm not where I live at least. So because there's no coffee shops near where I live, like not
Hmm.
within a walking distance. I would have to drive like 10 minutes into town to get a coffee. So it's just a bit of an inconvenience factor. I could on a Saturday, I could go to the gym and then walk and get a coffee, or do it with my shop or something. But again, I'm kind of like a bit sort of like business mode when it comes to like shopping and training and stuff. But yeah, I should probably give it a try.
Yeah, I do. What's it called? I take for granted the fact that I probably within 15 minutes of me, I I could almost count double digit coffee shops. Like
Jeez.
that's how many we have here. Like literally, there's a Starbucks, a Pret, a Nero. There may even be a Costa, and then there's obviously loads of independents as well. So like, I'm very spoilt for that sort of thing.
Mm.
But I imagine, what was the other thing I was going to ask you? How's the house renovations going? Have
I
they improved? I suppose you've
uh,
had a lot on your plate the last weeks, but it's been a while, right?
yeah, I was thinking about this as well. It's paused, I would say. I need to pick that. That's one thing I
When
can
did it
definitely
pause?
fix.
When you moved in?
Yeah.
After you got a lampshade.
It paused after the Ninja Creamy, I would have said. So probably beginning of June.
No, that's not even a house renovation. That's just a
I know
piece.
that.
Have you got a sofa yet?
Yeah, oh, I've got a sofa.
Oh, you got a sofa.
Yeah, a nice soft sofa.
A nice soft sofa. Good. I'm trying to think what else you would maybe want to have that you haven't got yet. I don't know.
I've got it's something so random, but I was just thinking, yeah, I really need to get like foot mats where you like brush your feet as you go into the house.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you need
And
one of
like
those. Otherwise, you just get a mess in the house
yeah,
every time, right?
so like stuff like that. And I genuinely I was thinking of pictures, but at the moment everything that I look at is just like, nah, that's not vibing with me at the moment. So
Yeah.
but I just need to get looking and get started. Or
Yeah,
I have gone.
it's to be honest, house stuff. I think you get into a role and then it's easy to, like anything in life, you get a snowball effect, and then it can just suddenly stop. And especially if other things pick up, like everything with Ada, I mean, we haven't done any house stuff for ages. We're in a kind of, I was in a really good role with this room,
Mm.
but once I got this room done, the other rooms I have to coordinate with Charlotte, and that just becomes an extra barrier to entry, so it doesn't so much happen. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Any other updates on your end? I guess you're still working your way through Hunter x Hunter.
That's it. So you it was just really convenient because as soon as you mentioned about Kite, uh that evening Kite came on the scene. So have you heard of, I don't know if I mentioned this in my check-in as well, but have you heard of Neferito? So she's come on the scene and the
Isn't it a he?
is it a he?
Interestingly enough, I think it might be one of those weird ones again. Like Karapika is a he, looks like a she. I think Neferito is a he. Interestingly enough, it's a
Oh.
bit. Hunter x Hunter has a few characters like that where you're like, are they male or? I'm just a bit confused. But anyway,
Yeah. Oh, I would have definitely put her down as female,
yeah,
but it's a yeah,
I
whatever.
don't know.
Well,
Someone will correct us in the comments again. That would be great.
absolutely. But no, it's great. I'm loving it. It just I don't know if we said this last week, but it's just enjoy it. It's just something to look forward to in the evening. So
Yeah.
it's just been really, really nice. I'm almost half like, oh, I kind of wish it did last as long as Naruto because you just like something to just keep watching. But I know there's so much other stuff out there as well.
There's so much. Um, I haven't made it much further through Bleach, to be honest, but I have just been. What I want to do is not have it as a on the side whilst
Mm.
I'm doing other things. That's unfortunately when I watch stuff on my laptop laptop, on this. On my desktop, I end up doing bits of work and emails and stuff, no matter what else I have on the side.
Right.
Whereas that's why I've quite liked watching on Netflix downstairs, watching Breaking Bad, because then it's like, well, and take my phone away from me, put it like in the corner of the room, and I can just actually sit and absorb what's going on.
Yeah.
Any news for the week? Is there anything you've got in
Well,
mind?
it might be a bit of dual news because I kind of learned about it through you. It was
You stole my
which
news.
is cheating. But earlier in the week, you mentioned about how the PCA banned 2 athletes. So
Yes.
it was more just I found that really interesting. Um, and it was, do you know what? I had a really interesting conversation with my colleague in the physio clinic yesterday because again they were just asking me like in natural bodybuilding, do they test you? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. It follows the WADA protocol. We do urine testing, we do polygraphs, and again, they were really surprised. And I thought that's great, and it's the way that it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. It comes back to, it's funny when you think about it, and when I say it, it becomes very clear. What makes natural bodybuilding is the testing, because without the testing, how can you know? And as an example, with the person that was banned and found to be taking a SARM recently through the PCA and their testing, he had competed at the WNBF
Hmm.
and at the UKDFBA and had been tested at the WNBF. I think they may have done a poly and urine on him. And at the UKDFBA, I actually don't think he was tested at all because they don't do a poly. And I don't know how they select urine samples exactly, but I don't think he placed or anything. I'm not sure. But the WNBF, I think he actually won his class. Maybe I can't be sure. And to be fair to this individual, he is what's it called? He's paid £1,000 basically to be like, hey, I want this re-looked at. I can't think what the terminology is for that. Do you know what that's called? He's like, it doesn't
Uh,
really matter, but you know what I mean. He's
yeah,
basically, he thinks that he shouldn't have failed, and so he wants it re-looked at. I don't know what the protocol is for that, so I'm not really referencing that individual, and I wouldn't want to give him it'd be really strange. I mean, I find it strange, full stop, for people who are enhanced to compete naturally, but it would be really strange to then pay £1,000 for just to confirm that you did cheat. Like, I
right.
find that strange, but at the end of the day, that's because you and me would find that strange because we aren't wired that way. And when I speak to people, for example, I'll have a podcast coming out of Joe Jeffrey, he has people request to have a consultation with him and to have coaching through him to pass tests for natural federations. And he doesn't do it because that's his morals. But there are coaches and plenty that will. So it's a bit like it happens. And I don't get it because, again, we're not wired that way to be cheaters. So anyway, it's a weird one. And honestly, with the WNBF, people might be thinking, well, how did he compete if he like passed their test? Like, maybe there is something there. He could have taken that SARM afterwards, right? I don't know what exactly the SARM is doing and the use of it. I think it was like a fat loss agent or something. But, they're selective androgen receptor modulators or something, SARMs. I don't know exactly how that all works, but it's just crazy. But the point being is, it's great that PCA are testing because I think people are a bit skeptical of the PCA and their natural status. I think they actually only have a 3-year drug-free policy anyway, which is, I don't think that's legit at all. I think you need to at least double that really to be more legit. But I kind of get it in some ways, and I can be empathetic to it in some ways, depending on the situation. Like, there could be individuals who have taken something for a few months, therefore not be able to compete for 10 years with the WNBF, for example. Well, at least there's then 3 years they can compete here. Like, if they didn't have that option, maybe they just, oh, fuck it, I'll just go back on gear then because I'm never going to be at, like, 10 years is too long to wait. So I can be empathetic in some situations. But regardless, they caught him, and I think it's great that they're publicizing it. Apart from that he's appealed, that's the word I was looking for, he's appealed, because I feel like if they should allow if the person isn't going to appeal, publicize it, like, fine. But if they're appealing, I feel like you should allow that appeal to go through before you publicize it, because no matter what, that individual, if he comes back as it was all fine, he's tarnished with that
Yeah.
brush of failing. And that's hard. And it just, I don't know, people's mental health, people talk about it, right? And if he's like got a real attachment to natural bodybuilding and he's getting, I don't know, people get really, really upset about these things. He could be getting a lot of hate comments that could harm him, and he could do something that he shouldn't do, especially in the state of being shredded, right? You know, when you're
Totally.
mentally not in a great spot. But you're right, the PCA, so they announced that one, and a few weeks prior, they found someone on, what were they taking? I think it was a fat loss agent. I can't remember what particularly it was, but again, another banned substance, and he got his title and things taken away from him. So I think it's good because it shows not only are they finding people and catching people, which is really important, but also they're testing, the other people who are being tested are all coming through clean, which again is really, really good. So I think it's just a positive thing that they get publicized, because again, that helps build awareness where it's like, oh, that's what natural bodybuilding is. I have actually reached out to, I'll be interested to know if I can get a podcast going on talking to a polygrapher.
Yeah.
In 2021, I had the same polygrapher at Worlds as in 2024. I don't know if I told you. It was the same guy, which is kind of wild that I remembered him, and he didn't remember me, of course, but I remembered him. And I chatted to him and we got quite friendly, and I was just like, would you be up for a podcast? So there are polygraphers that do this that would be interested, because I think a lot of people are like, they don't quite understand how that process works. And I don't think I even do fully. But from having spoken to some individuals who are a bit more privy to it, I think some people look at polygraphs as like they're trying to make you fail. But if anything, they're trying to get you to pass, because people are worried about false positives, which I totally understand, because I also worry about that. But I think there's more to it than if you come out as failing the polygraph, you're now banned for life. There's like, they taught you a bit more. Normally what happens, I think, when you're polygraphed and you fail, if you aren't natural or you have tried to cheat, you just come out with it, right? You just feel like, fuck, what am I meant to do? Like, get you to test and test and test. Whereas if you are, like, if we failed on it, we'd be like, no, please, like, can we do it again?
Yeah.
Ask me a different way, whatever. In fact, that happened to me with my first polygraph at the MPA. It was that was when I learned about polygraphs. I was like, these are intense. I was in there for like an hour doing this polygraph. And I failed it because of the way they asked me the question, because obviously my background of having taken testosterone for health reasons for a short period of time after my accident. And they asked if I'd ever taken a banned substance. And I was like, yes. And they're like, no, you're meant to say no. And I was like, yeah, but I told you about my background and the fact I'd be on TRT. And they're like, oh, we have to redo it and ask you in a different way. I was like, okay. Like, I think it was like they had to ask me, have you ever taken a banned substance for the purpose of sports enhancement or muscle growth or something along those lines? It's like, okay, now that would pass you, because I would say no in that situation. Like, I knew it was having benefits. I know it is banned, but I wasn't taking it for that reason. So anyway, I'm privy to having done a few polygraphs and even had that fail. And so it's not like it's that way around. So anyway, I think it would be interesting to talk to a polygrapher and maybe like a president of a federation, or one of the affiliates through the WNBF, so that we can explore that a bit more, so people understand the testing and what the process is.
I totally agree. I think the more like you can help with educating people, helping people to understand, I think it alleviates a lot of the fears and misconceptions people might have about it, and it can just help move the sport forward, So I just think it would be such a good idea. And just even if it just encourages more informed discussions, because certainly I imagine like in comment sections of various things, it's like people probably say things, but they don't really understand. But yeah, so this would be awesome. Yeah. So
yeah,
good.
I think unfortunately there is a lot of people that think they really, like, they're just like, oh, surely you can just pass the test really easily. Like, oh, they've just heard it through the grapevine that you can quite easily pass these things. I'm like, I don't really know like how easy it is to pass. Again, I'd need to talk to an expert in the field or whatever. But yeah, it would be good to get more insights into that, especially well, obviously we've spoken about polygraphs before and we're both pro polygraph.
Yeah.
which we could go into, but we've spoken about it plenty before. But yeah, I don't know if you had any more thoughts on the subject of the PCA and their testing and finding people and
Just other than it is a tricky situation. I agree. Like I really like to see people publicize things because more just it helps communicate with everybody, with other federations, etc. But I think you made a really good point. I think it is tricky around the timing of when those messages come out because for helping the individual, it's just tricky and mistakes are going to be made sometimes, and you just hope that in this situation it doesn't lead to any kind of unwanted consequences at all. But overall, I think this is really, really positive, and long may it continue. I hope.
yeah, I don't know the insides and outs of the appeals process. Maybe it's incredibly long-winded, and maybe for the situation that it was, the appeal is incredibly unlikely to pass or any. I don't know if that person had paid the amount or whatever. We're not privy to that amount of information, so I can't really comment too strongly on any front there. But yeah, like you said, the WNBF and the UKFBA, I think both published that they banned the individual for life now. And I just can't believe that people would risk that, especially if you're in the industry and in the space yourself. Like, man, that's just. I think that's why the polygraph's great, because I think so many people. I don't think this is a wrong thought to have. I'm not saying it's correct, but I think you could make an argument for those who don't compete with the WNBF because they have. Is it because they have a polygraph and you're just competing with federations that don't do a polygraph because you're worried about the polygraph because you've done something because urine tests and things, I don't know, they have a time limit, right? Polygraphs don't have that time limit in regards to like you're lying, a lie lasts for life. Taking something lasts in your urine for, I don't know, depends on the thing, right? So I do find that interesting that does seem to happen. So, but anyway, again, that's a discussion to have on like a formal podcast surrounding drug testing and everything like that.
Definitely, and it comes back to also what you said about not everyone we all have different morals, different ways of thinking and stuff, and for some people maybe the risk is worth it, or maybe they just have different morals, they don't care. You just don't know, really. I know it just wouldn't even cross my mind, some of those things. It just wouldn't. But hey, we're all different, right?
Yeah, I wonder if people just think they were not going to get tested. Like they just think that, which, I mean, the chances are, unless you do well and they don't do polygraphs, you're not going to get tested, right? But you're playing with like a deck of cards. Why would you play with?
But do you think that that's such a weird thing, right? Because it's like clearly you're taking this banned substance to do well, like to build the best body that you can. Otherwise, why would you take them? And it's like, well, surely if you're then going to do well, you're more likely to get tested. And it's like,
yeah, the mind boggles. I will never understand a cheater. Like in various aspects of life, it's just never been. We're both probably a bit too stickler for the rules at times.
Yeah.
As I've matured, I've understood that some rules are meant to be broken or bent, and others though are definitely not. And yeah, anyway, should we get to questions? Is there anything else?
No, that's everything. And I think we've got some cool. Have you looked at the questions in advance?
Not properly. So yeah, no, not really.
The first one I think is a good one.
Okay. Oh.
So it builds off nicely off of what we discussed last week.
If you've got an answer, shall I ask you first?
Well,
You've looked ahead.
I've looked ahead, but I'd be interested to get your thoughts on it. So, Vale.Delamura asks, the best natural bodybuilder in your opinion? Question for both Mike and Steve.
You know where my head immediately goes is, how do you define best?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking, which is why I wanted to discuss it, because I was like, how do you define best?
Because if you want to do objectively best, like who's going to win on a bodybuilding stage when you have the 100 best in the world, like quote unquote, who have won the WNBF Worlds, like you have every champion of WNBF Worlds, put them on a stage over the years, who's going to win it? Like that's one way of defining it. Or can you look at best as being like, the one who has contributed the most to like natural bodybuilding and its growth, for example. Like someone like an Eric Helms comes to mind, and 3DMJ. I think they've done a ton of good for for natural bodybuilding and the industry as a whole. When I think about the best, like competitively, Babacar immediately comes to mind. I really, really, really struggle to see him being beat. And I still think he could even actually, and I think you probably agree with this, Mike, he could be even better
Yeah.
posing wise, because he doesn't present, I don't think, in the most symmetrical way all the time with some of his poses, but he's so symmetrical and he has such a great X-frame, it doesn't really hurt him, and he can beat off any others. So, yeah, and obviously he can improve his calves. I spoke about that last time, Babacar. He probably knows that. He's probably frustrated with that too. Yeah, I don't know if you have any other thoughts you want to add to that one.
Just saying, just like, also, are we talking about like categories? Because, what's the best, lightweight or bantam or middle? I just think it's so tricky. And all the thoughts that you said were exactly what were going through my head. I can't probably name one until we define what we're talking about. But like, I totally echo your thoughts in terms of Babacar. Yeah, and my head was only going to different categories as well. Like, I genuinely think for like a bantam light and weight, that like someone like Dirk, I genuinely think as a bantamweight, Dirk's could be one of the best from a competitive standpoint potentially.
Well, he's definitely one of the best, but he was beaten last year.
True. I can't even remember who he was beaten by.
I
can't
can't remember
the
his
guy.
name either. I think it's Marcus, maybe.
Okay.
But he was in my mind to potentially select for quads, because he has like Dirk is very, very good, very conditioned. Like obviously he's a pro and has won world titles, but his symmetry or his structure, sorry, is not on the level of, I think it's Marcus. I can't remember his last name. I might even be wrong with Marcus, but the guy that beat him at Worlds last year, he doesn't look like bantam. he looks much bigger than that. So, but even people will say like a Doug Miller, for example. If you've seen Doug Miller at his prime, I actually have only seen like side chests, most musculars, maybe a rear double bicep. I haven't seen like his full physique, so I find it a bit hard to assess. But I can't see a Doug Miller beating a Babacar. I don't think if I was judging them, I think Babacar would end up winning symmetry, and then maybe it'll be pretty close on conditioning and muscularity potentially. So I think Babacar would just end up getting the nod there. So I struggle thinking of past WNBF winners. I struggle to think of one that would beat Babacar.
Yeah, no, I'm the same.
And we've seen him in person, so we know how ridiculous he looks.
Totally. And but it was funny because I remember we first saw him when he had his clothes on, and we were like, ah, okay. And you didn't get the full appreciation for him. And then we walked in the pumping room, and we were like, oh, are we in the right competition?
Yeah, even Babacar is cursed with the natural, like, although he was wearing, I think, like joggers and stuff that's not gonna, if he was wearing like a fitted t-shirt and like short shorts, you wouldn't think he was a natural bodybuilder. You'd think he was an enhanced bodybuilder, or like, I don't know, an American football player, like one of the fitter, leaner ones.
What's Babacar's stage weight again?
Oh God, I can't remember.
Is it? Yeah, because he's slightly shorter than me, I think.
Yeah, he's not a tall individual.
No. So yeah, crazy.
I can't remember his stage weight. It's probably not actually no, he's heavier than me. Or similar, very similar, but I think heavier. Like even than me. Yeah, to think like I don't know how tall are you, Mike? 5'7"?
Yeah, if I'm being gracious, probably somewhere between 5'6" and 5'7".
So he's under 5'6" probably, and I'm 5'10", and he's the same. If you mean he was heavier than me at Worlds, so like he could have easily 5-10 pounds on me, which is ridiculous when you think about it. So
Madness.
It's hard to think that there's someone that's going to beat that, especially because he also is built nicely, and muscle bellies and insertions, everything is just there, as well as the muscle, and he gets in very comparable condition. Could he get leaner? Maybe, I don't know, but could that harm his overall look. I don't know. It could. So, uh, yeah, I actually saw him. He posted a story recently. He still just looks like completely stage shredded. I'm like, does he even really gain much weight? I'd be very. I would love to interview him for the podcast, but unfortunately, as we both know, his English is not quite to the standard of being interviewed. So I'd love to get a bit privy of what does Babacar's programming, nutrition, training, everything look like.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's very good, and I think he's Baba no stress for a reason. So I think he has stress really well managed and under control. But I think people might look at someone like that and be like, he must be on top of every optimal thing possible. I highly doubt that that's the way he's driven, probably for good reason too. It'd probably harm him if he was to try go down that route. I think he does a lot of powerlifting, doesn't he, in off season? Not many like iliac lat pull downs.
Nope. Like a lot of sumo deadlifts. I saw him do a sumo deadlift post once. I'm like, surely he does more than this, surely.
And that is why you can't use genetic freaks, which he absolutely is, as the way to go about it, which is where something like the comment success leaves clues, only clues. If we were to do what Babacar does, we would not, I'd never look similar to him anyway. Anyway, shall I get to the next question, Mike?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to the bathroom very briefly because I drank too much again. So, M. Gallimard asks, how do you go about assessing someone's training status? That's basically it.
Yeah. So I think with some of the things that you mentioned, so they also, within the question, they mentioned about training age, strength, standards. I don't think strength is a reliable indicator for training status. I do think the length of time someone has been training could be incorporated into that, for sure. But I think it's also how much, I guess, intention has been put towards that training. Because I guess if training has been a little bit on and off, so if someone's been training for 20 years, but maybe it's not been with much intention or dedication, then I don't think that would necessarily mean that that is 20 years of like true dedicated like specialization. So, and I think you'd also want to go off metrics such as, so their performance. And what I mean by that is if they were to have a night of poor sleep, maybe they went out drinking or whatever, and then the next day their performance was through the floor, then again that might be an indicator to say like, hey, perhaps they've been working at this for a long time, they're a bit more advanced. Whereas if it's someone where it doesn't really impact their performance much, perhaps they're not as far down the line in terms of status. But those are some of the initial thoughts that come to my mind, and I don't know if you've got any additional thoughts, Steve.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry to take this question a completely different direction.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of assessing body fat. Like, in reality, why do you need to know your body fat percentage? Ever?
Yeah.
What relevance does it have? Either you are lean enough to feel like you can bulk and are okay accepting not getting leaner and actually maybe getting fatter, or you're of a level of fatness where you're like, I need to bring this down. Like, it's kind of one of those, right? It's like, well, who really cares otherwise? Then it's similar here, like with training age. What does it matter, really? Like, there isn't like an advanced training program and like a beginner training program. I mean, there is, but it's not like your programming is always context and individual dependent. So there might be an advanced individual who's doing 3 times a week full body because that's all they can commit to during the week. Similarly, someone as a beginner might be like, I want to train 6 days a week. And so you could set up a program that way. And there's some broad principles that apply, like, hey, training volume tends to be a bit less at the start when you are training. And you might be less specific about some technique elements, like an iliac pull down probably isn't something a beginner needs to do. They could still do it though. So I'm like, what relevance does it have? Like, I don't really know. Maybe that's me being, the main relevance I see it is if you're trying to purchase a program online and it says it's a beginner or intermediate or advanced, but it's like, in reality, they're just modulating like training volume more than anything, I imagine, versus any other distinct reasons, because it's not like you can't do metabolite techniques as a beginner. Yeah, it's not worth spending a lot of time on, but even as someone advanced, basically you're program wants to look very similar to what it looked like when you were a beginner. It's just now you potentially you need more to progress and can give it even more. But fundamentally, the principles still apply the same way, if that makes sense.
Totally. And I think that's such a great point. I think sometimes, whether it's a human thing or not, but sometimes we like to put things into boxes, we like to put things into categories, and it's like you said, it doesn't have any relevance to what we're trying to achieve. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. But you mentioned a lot of good points, and where I come to is typically it's how because this encompasses a lot of the things you mentioned in terms of like they might have been training a long time, but how consistent have they been? How diligent have they been? How smart have they been with their training? And also, like in a sense, whether or not you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced is relational to your genetic ceiling. It's like how close are you to being advanced? Like if you have like amazing genetics, you might look advanced but be intermediate because you have so many more gains to be made, and so that's you're not quite advanced. So I tend to look at it as like how hard do you have to try for progressions, and how quickly do they come? The harder you have to try and the slower they come, the more advanced you are. And the easier they come, the less hard you have to try and be on top of things, the less advanced you are. So you could have someone who's been, barely putting in much effort and over the last 20 years, so theoretically advanced on training age, but it's like, well, if you really double down on things, you might see progress on a week to week or even like especially bi-weekly basis. So actually you're a beginner. So I think whereas for us, it's like we've been giving it everything for multiple years, for decades, and we are progressing slowly. We are legitimately advanced to that, like, I don't want to call it elite, but it's like we're really milking out those last, or trying to push out that last little bit of toothpaste in the toothpaste. What's the toothpaste container? Like, what do you call that? The tube. Yes, there you go. Anyway.
No, that totally makes sense. And I guess the only thing that crossed my mind is, again, we're not saying it's not advanced in a superiority type of way. It's just saying like, hey, it just takes more for us to, to progress. That's all it's saying. That's all you're saying, I think.
Yeah, it's why I was like, elite sounds like you're better, but I don't mean it that way. I just mean the results are way, way slower. That's essentially what level of advancement is kind of determining, in fact.
And I don't know, this might be a bit off, but I don't know about you, Steve, but like, of course we would like progress to come quicker, but I think when you just love the process, like you almost don't care sometimes. Do you kind of resonate with that at all?
Yeah, I think the cool thing is when progress comes faster, you aren't as happy with your look. Whereas when progress comes slower, you're more muscular. So you're more happy with your look. So it ends up being kind of this thing of like, I'm not as worried. Like when I go into the gym now and train, I love the process. I love training. And I'm like, I look good. Like I'm happy with that. Whereas if I was seeing that really slow progress and I had the level of muscularity of someone who shouldn't see slow progress, that's when I'd struggle. And that's where I think there's people who are genetically outliers of poor genetics and low responders. I can understand if they had to try as hard as what we do to get a physique that was like when we were intermediate, I can see why they maybe would not decide to continue potentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where my head goes with it at least. But yeah, I completely am with you there.
Yeah, similarly. I just thought then, like, I just love training. Like, I love training. I love every aspect of it. But like you said, I think now that we've built a physique that we're more happy with, it does help the process for sure.
Yeah, and I think if there's someone listening who feels like they're seeing advanced level results in regards to slow results, but they don't feel like they look like an advanced person, I would, and you've tried a lot of things, I'd reach out to a coach to just double check, because a good coach will get you on the right path, and you might be missing sometimes when we're in our own head, we miss things that are like blindly obvious to maybe a coach outside in. I can just think of, I've had examples of people who have signed up and they say that they're doing all the things, but then when you start working with them and you look over like their MyFitnessPal, you look at their sleep hygiene, you're like, man, you are not nailing these things. And when they start doing it, it's like, whoa, okay, now you're seeing intermediate results, which makes sense given your level of muscularity. So yeah, if you are of that ilk, reach out to Revive Stronger. We'll be able to get you on the right path.
Exactly. I was gonna say that's the perfect
Sales pitch.
segue. Yeah, exactly. We didn't plan that.
Actually, didn't. I hadn't looked at the questions. Shall I? You ask this question? No, you asked the last one, right? No, I
Yeah.
asked you. I always forget, don't I?
So, Lifting Lewis 5 asks, how long do you leave it between your final meal and sleeping? Should we give it 3 hours for larger meals for optimal sleep hygiene?
So I'll answer the first question first, and then the next question. So I think 2 to 3 hours is a really, really smart move to avoid large quantities of food pre-bed in the context, particularly of someone maintaining or massing. When you're dieting, I think it's far less of a concern. And also, sometimes it's more of a problem of being hungry through the night and waking up hungry. And so it's worth having the food there. So that's my general thoughts regarding that, because there is good literature to suggest that, hey, it's like when your body is digesting a large amount of food. You've probably done it, Mike. I've done it before where it's similar to like actually last week when we checked in and I could have trained at 8 p.m. for 2.5 hours and then I'd be wired and I'm meant to be sleeping and it just wouldn't have been worth it, because we know when you train close to bedtime, it's bad for sleep. Similar, if I had to get half my food in within an hour before bed, there's no way I'm doing that. I'd get in like maybe 500 calories, try and meet my protein and make up for it other days. So, yeah, that's kind of that. In regards to what I do personally, I do my best. I still have this tendency to put quite a bit of my food later in the day. So I'm on 3,500 calories at the moment, actually 3,550 or thereabouts, between that range. And I have like my first two meals are like just over 1,000 calories. My dinner is around 800, and then my creamy is 300. And then there's a few hundred calories spare here or there that I might mop up somewhere. So I basically have 3 1,000 plus calorie meals there or thereabouts. And I try to have my dinner finished by 8 p.m. and I go to bed between 10 and 10:30. And then I have my Ninja Creamy. Normally, Charlotte gets home at the moment at like 9 p.m. And then we sit down and watch like one thing for an hour together. And I like to sit down, eat my Ninja Creamy, chill out, like it's my time. And that's normally 300 calories at most, the Ninja Creamy. So that's how I tend to do it. I think I could probably be better by shifting everything maybe an hour earlier, which I might start doing. But I like having that morning not eating just because I can be so efficient with work and everything like that. But I have sometimes found I'm like done with majority of check-ins that have come through, at least with clients initially at like 10:30, and then I can get that in a little bit earlier. I can get to the gym a bit earlier and everything kind of is a bit earlier. I quite like that. And then just having that 300 calorie, mostly just protein Ninja Creamy, like within an hour before bed. That tends to be where I'm at. But yeah, it's not the probably quote unquote most optimal it could be, but I've certainly been worse. Like there's sometimes where I'll go out for a meal with Charlotte of an evening and we might not finish eating till 9 p.m. maybe. And typically obviously meals out are 1,000 calories plus. And then I'm trying to go to bed at 10:30, and quite often at that point, like I have experienced a small amount of gastric reflux before in the night, and I hate that. And I've just noticed my sleep quality is a bit poorer, so I know it does impact me when I don't adhere to some sort of smaller amount of food in the hours leading into bed. Long ramble.
No, really helpful. And but it was making me think there about, it's the small differences between, sure, things could be a bit more optimal, but like, I can't think of the right terminology, but is the juice worth the squeeze? So it's like that, your work productivity in the morning, like that's a massive win. And also just relaxing with a Ninja Creamy with Charlotte at the end of the day, like from a stress relief perspective, that probably does more good than you trying to be stressed out or trying to eat whilst you're doing your client check-ins, or, trying to rush in a meal or whatever, before Charlotte gets home or whatever. I don't know. what's optimal on
weighing it up.
paper, yeah, doesn't always account for that. And
How's your final meal and all of that?
and so that kind of segue into me. So I would say, so I'm similar. I would say that a lot, a larger amount of calories are at the end of the day. Um, and I would say that I probably finish my meal half an hour to an hour before I go to bed. Probably half an hour most of the time before I go to bed.
How
Um,
many calories is that typically?
is probably around 1,000 calories.
Okay, so you're even worse than me. That makes me feel
I know.
better.
There you go. Exactly. But do you know what? It's one of those things. I don't feel that it detrimentally impacts my sleep. It probably could be, but like you said, it could be better. I probably might if I had the choice, but I just find that I have a certain routine and it really just is part of my wind down and it's what helps me just get zen and chilled for getting ready to bed. And, you know, and I just find that that's kind of what works. And I think if I was to change it, yeah, maybe I would need someone to shake me out of it, probably like physically, in order to
Yeah.
do that. At the moment,
Something I've done is just over time tried to make that evening meal smaller. So it used to be the largest meal, whereas actually my post-workout meal is now my largest. So I've just tried to chip away at it rather than try and move it because I quite like the timing of it. I've just tried to make it smaller. And also with the Ninja Creamy, I used to like reserve like any treats I'd have and anything like that, additional calories, I'd have them with the Ninja Creamy is like, oh, that's going to be nice. But now I try and just be like, hey, there's no reason for you to need to do that. Have them earlier in the day. So I just try and I've just shifted more calories earlier versus trying to change like the big elements of the structure. So you might just look at the meal you have that's 1,000 calories and be like, is there anything of that I can reduce and have it in earlier meals to make it a bit better? The other thing probably that would help is I imagine because part of the issue of that pre-bed feed is the digestive distress. So if you had a easier to digest meal, that would probably help too. So not having like huge amounts of food volume, high fiber, loads of fat, that's probably close to bedtime would probably harm your sleep more than having something that's lower in all those factors. Just as a
yeah.
side note.
And do you know? But it's funny you mentioned that because that's kind of what I've done. Where even though it's a larger amount of calories, it's relatively calorically dense compared to, so it doesn't feel like I've got a lot of weight of food in my stomach digesting. Kind of feels
Yeah.
like, I don't feel bloatedly uncomfortable.
What is the meal out of interest?
It's typically Ninja Creamy. Well, I have some vegetables, and then I'll have a cereal type thing, like a granola or something with some yogurt, and then a Ninja Creamy for dessert.
So funny. People hear that. If they're bodybuilders like us, they'll be like, yeah, that's a meal. Whereas if they're someone like my Charlotte, my partner,
Yeah.
she'd be like, what the fuck is that? That's not a meal. In fact, she would probably look at all my meals that I call meals in the day and be like, it's not a meal. Like, what is that? That's just like constitute an actual, like, it's not like steak and veg and a jacket potato or beans or, that sort of thing. But yeah, my dinners, yeah, they're sometimes look like tonight's will not like it won't look like a meal, but you'll hear it, you'll be like, yeah, it sounds good. So I'll have a salad and then I'm having two boiled eggs on that salad, just like chopped up, put on top. And then on the side I'm having one of those have you had the My Protein protein mousses?
Yes.
They're great. And in Iceland, they're 5 for a fiver, which is just stupid because they cost $2.50 each. So you buy 2 for £5, or you can buy 5 for £5. Like, anyway,
Great
so I'm
deal.
going to have one of those to just get some extra protein in, of course, and just a bit of a sweet treat, which I probably don't really need because I'm having the Ninja Creamy afterwards. And I'll chuck in a few nuts on top of that as well, just like for some fats. But it's like that's not a meal really. Like it's a bit all over the shop. But anyway,
So
we
true.
just enjoy our way of eating.
My colleagues will at work at the physio clinic will sometimes ask me, "Oh, what are you having for dinner?" And I'm sometimes so reluctant because they'll do exactly that. They'll go, "What? That's like exactly like you said." They're like, "That's not a meal," and they'll have something like, "Oh, I'm having like lasagna or something like that," and I'm like,
Something
"Oh,
normal.
yeah."
Yeah.
I'm so not normal.
I also don't. Some people like cooking, and I just don't like cooking.
Nah.
So like the extent of my cooking is. But oh, did I say sourdough as well that I'm having? I have some
Oh no, you
toast on the
didn't.
side as
Yeah.
well.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
that's what I'm having. Some toast, 3 slices of bread of the sourdough, and one of them is going to have some nut butter on because I need some fats. So
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. It's just such like hitting numbers. But that's my dinner is always like a good size salad, not crazy, just a good size with typically sourdough, and then it's normally eggs or salmon. And I just kind of rotate through that. And then sometimes I run out of one of them and I have to chuck in some extra dairy, which is where
Yeah.
I get most of my protein.
Well, like again, I'd be like, yeah, that's great. I love it. What's wrong with that?
So I ask you the
Yeah.
next question. So my phone keeps resetting. Why, Max Hunter, why does the back require so much damn volume compared to other muscle groups? I don't think that's so much of a question as a complaint.
Yeah. Well, I guess like again, when you think about it, the back is multiple muscle groups, multiple big muscle groups. Like sometimes you look at, if you were to look at an anatomy chart, the trapezius in and of itself, it's like it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And then you look at the lats, and then you've got smaller muscle groups that comprise that as well. It's like
The
it's a big
Terries
area.
are pretty big too.
Teres,
Yeah.
like it's huge.
And the rear
So
delts, I guess, if you can include those. Erectors, damn. Yeah, lots.
yeah. And personally, like I would just see it as just in some ways break it down like what you do in terms of, you know, you might have your vertical and horizontal pulling, but you've also got your, like, you might have a different emphasis for a certain part of the lat or a certain part of, like, the mid back, whatever. And I think maybe if you just break it down a little bit, it becomes less daunting or overwhelming potentially.
Also, length and partials.
Length and
If you
partial.
aren't using them, that might be why you need so much volume. Because in theory, your back could be so many reps in reserve because you're failing in the short position where your back is weakest. Whereas actually, you could get more lengthened exposures by doing some lengthened partials. You might find you need less volume that way because you can generate more stimulus via being closer to failure and getting more lengthened exposures. Exposures.
There you go.
Yeah.
Boom.
Next question.
Ah, Beamy. So, Beamy asks, how would you describe or explain what bodybuilding is and what it involves to an individual, colleague, or family member that has no idea?
Hmm. I'm trying to think of a succinct way to describe this. So I would say bodybuilding, the majority of the time, is really taking care of yourself and going to the gym and resistance training and eating plenty to fuel that process without getting over fat and trying to build bigger muscles. And then when you compete, you are trying to reveal those muscles that you've built during that period of time and remove the body fat in a gradual process so that you can see the separation and striations and details within those muscles and then pose in a way to present them in a symmetrical and aesthetic way for the judges, removing body hair and getting a tan to complement that look and to reveal the look even more under great lighting.
Mm.
I think that's how to try and describe it.
That was great. That was great. It's funny, my head immediately went to competitive bodybuilding, but I think separating competitive with non-competitive, that is actually really important, because that's a part of it. I think my head went to how it's kind of a blend between sport and art in a way. And if a sport that I sometimes compare it to is rhythmic gymnastics, because rhythmic gymnastics has a very, very strong artistic component to it. And obviously, you have judges which score the routines and the artistic elements to the routines. And I so sometimes use that as a comparison. Um, but then I would say exactly that, where there's different categories, and that it's essentially building up your physique to show off the physique to its best and most aesthetic potential. And then you're doing that in a way that is potentially healthy majority of the time. Yeah, I think that's kind of roughly what I would say.
It is a muscle bound beauty contest.
They, but we're not muscle bound though.
What do you mean we're not muscle bound? You
We're
can
not.
speak for yourself.
We're not like we've still got good. Some of us have good mobility.
Is that the description of muscle bound? I just thought of muscle bound as being like of lots of muscle, someone who has lots of muscle.
When someone says
Or you
muscle
think
bound,
bound by muscles, like
yeah, like can
interesting.
wipe my ass because I've got too much muscle.
Wow, yeah, that's a problem for me, to be honest. No, it's actually not. So let's get to the next question then. Tom P231288 asks, any benefit / preference between 3 sets at an RPE 8 or 9 or 2 sets at RPE 10? For example, dumbbell shoulder press 34 times 3 times 8 compared to 36 times 7 and 30 times 8. I feel like he complicated that by giving the example.
The example didn't help at all. I don't think there is any benefit or preference to the two, because essentially he's saying, do you do more volume at a lower intensity, or do you do higher volume? Eight. So hang on, I've confused things. Hang on. Lower volume. Yeah,
I
sorry.
can give my answer.
Go on, you give your answer.
I'm just comparing, hey, it's 3 sets at an RP 8 or 9 or 2 sets at an RP 10. If I was looking at that in not including any other things in my mind, 3 hard sets would beat 2 hard sets as a hypertrophic stimulus, because we're not gaining. And some people would like to break this down in terms of effective reps, but I don't even think you need to do that here. An 8 or 9 RPE is very similar in terms of hypertrophic stimulus to an RPE 10. However, a whole extra set, that's a lot more volume going from 2 to 3. You think about a percentage increase, it's huge.
Yeah.
So 33% or whatever it is. I don't know if I've mathed that right, but that's a big additional stimulus. So I would say in that example, that's the route I would be going down. But it's kind of similar to me of being like, I don't know, is eating an orange with some whey protein and a banana better than eating broccoli with blueberries and steak? I'm like, with the same macros. I'm like, I couldn't care less what you're eating in one individual meal. I care about your diet as a whole in the long term. It's kind of similar here. I care about the program as a whole, not just one single exercise.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, nothing further to add there, Your Honor.
Okay. I'll ask you the next one then.
Yeah, go for it.
Set by Set asks, a few people have advocated going for 10 to 15-minute walks to aid digestion after meals. What are your thoughts? Is it true or a minor point?
So I would say that I think this is a minor point. So I think that there is probably some thoughts to, and I think in fact this was discussed on the Revive Stronger podcast with Greg Potter, in the sense that I think he said that having a postprandial walk does improve insulin sensitivity, and I think it does have I don't know if he said if it has an impact on digestion, but it has an impact on insulin sensitivity, if I recall.
It helps blunt the glucose spike, like it levels that out quicker. So yeah, in a sense, I guess you could say it helps insulin sensitivity in some way, but it's more so it helps to manage blood glucose so you don't have that spike much afterwards.
Yeah. And but from a digestion perspective, some people say they report that it helps. I don't think it's a big issue. I think for some people it will help, other people it might not be a big issue. So I don't think it's something that you need to actively go out of your way to do.
Very well said. I absolutely agree. It's a minor point. And I think where my head went, or sometimes goes with these quite specific questions, is if you don't hear, and I can't say that this is something you can strongly rely upon, but I think it's, as a general heuristic, it's really good. If you don't hear people within the evidence-based space, your Dr. Mikes, your Eric Helms, your Greg Nichols, so on and so forth, us speaking about this as if it's something you should definitely be doing. And then it's similar to like, hey, should I be taking this supplement? If these individuals aren't speaking about the fact that there's this promising supplement, you should be taking it. It's probably at best minor, at worst not even worth worrying about. What I will say is, not only is Greg bring this up, but Stan Efferding, who's the podcast has been recorded, it's going to be released in the next couple of weeks. He does like these kind of digestive walks, and there is definitely research to suggest that it helps improve glycemic control and that it can help with digestion, but it's within a given population. It's people who are more insulin resistant. It's people who are more prone to bloating or constipation, people that are generally sedentary, living sedentary lifestyles, or have pre-diabetes. In people who are physically active, not sedentary for long periods of the day, and are healthy, the impact is going to be incredibly small. And I certainly wouldn't be losing sleep over it or making it an inconvenience. It's kind of like you mentioned previously, is the juice worth the squeeze? For me, if I was to eat my dinner and have to go out for another freaking walk, I'd just be like, God damn it. No, I'm not doing that. It just doesn't work into my day at all. Whereas for a lot of people, it could be just like a little bonus. You have dinner with your wife or partner, and then you're like, hey, want to go for a 5 to 10 minute walk outside? It might feel nice to kind of have a bit of like ease of digestion, and maybe you get a bit of benefit in terms of blood glucose levels. But it's certainly not a big deal for us.
Yeah. Nice. I liked it.
Cool.
So Ed Recovery _lifts asks, is there research comparing sugar and sweeteners in a pre-workout? Does the sweetener give a placebo effect versus the sugar?
I'm not aware of any research looking at using artificial sweeteners as a pre-workout. There is research comparing artificial sweeteners versus sugar directly. Yeah. But typically this is trying to look at, some people claim that artificial sweeteners kind of trick the body into thinking it's getting sugar, and then the body has this similar response to what it would with sugar, but doesn't get it, and so then you're craving sugar. That is complete and utter BS. It sounds kind of rational and logical in some way, but it doesn't happen. The body doesn't have that response. And people who are like struggling with glycemic control and stuff, they can have sugar-free beverages just fine. Like, it doesn't cause that response like a sugar-sweetened beverage would, and that wouldn't be great for them. But in regards to like pre-workout, yeah, I'm not aware of that. The thing that comes to mind for me is the mouth rinse study. So the carbohydrate mouth swishing, where they don't actually consume the sugar or the glycogen, or they don't get to store it as glycogen, the glucose, sorry. They kind of spit it out, but they still get this psychological response, neurological, whatever it is, and that seems to benefit their performance within sessions. So I have postulated or hypothesized that you might get the same benefit from just something that tastes sweet. And so, a bit more practical, you don't have to swash it and spit it out, but you could just have an artificial sweetened beverage during your session, and it might just light up some of these centers in the brain that might keep you a bit more switched on during your workout and help aid performance. I can't think of any reasons why it'd be a poor thing to do. And if anything, it keeps you hydrated in your session because you're more likely to drink tasty water than not tasty water. So yeah, I'm not aware of any research looking at it, but I think hypothetically there could be some benefit to it. And particularly at times of which you're dieting or have low carbohydrate intake, I think that could be pretty cool to do so.
Anecdotally, I've actually tried this. So it was the same session. So it was my last session of the week, lower body session. And I had Robinson's squash, and I've also had it with cyclic dextrin on different occasions. And there is definitely something different to having cyclic dextrin as opposed to just Robinson's squash for me personally.
Cool.
I felt performance was definitely better with the cyclic dextrin.
Out of interest, was it quite a high volume, long workout?
Yeah.
Were you fasted?
No.
No, you had a meal beforehand as well?
Yeah.
Okay. You're like, you weren't sure for a moment. No, you did. Okay.
It was like whey protein and a banana, I think.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wondered if under fasted conditions, I think that would make even more sense, and a higher volume, longer workout would make even more sense. That having that ready available, easy to digest carbohydrate source would have even more of a benefit. Nice,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
makes
nothing
sense.
else to add there.
Cool. Is it me?
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Right, let me get. Every time it logs me out of the hypertrophic time chamber, which, by the way, if you're wondering, where are they getting their questions from? Why are they looking at their phone? It's because we're on Instagram, going into my profile, onto my broadcast group, and we're scrolling to find the latest question. So that's why. And every time my phone, whatever it does, switches off, it doesn't switch off, it like hibernates, whatever it's called. It takes me out of it. So I have to go log back in every time. Well, not log in, thankfully. Anyway, so Barnaby B10 asks, has there been any further research on chrononutrition following the Big Breakfast study? Would be good to get a podcast with Danny Lennon.
Well, not that I'm aware of. I'm probably not going to be able to answer this very well, but as far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any more research on chrononutrition from what I've heard. But I don't know if you have heard anything, Steve.
I haven't looked into it recently, so I don't even know what the Big Breakfast study is precisely. I can't think of the specific study that he's referencing, but there has been research looking into the difference between having more of your calories earlier in the day versus later in the day, and there seems to be a benefit to having them earlier in the day. People seem to be a little bit more active generally in the day from having more earlier, and they're a bit more insulin sensitive earlier in the day. However, this is under the conditions that the study looked at, which is people not resistance training, and like that changes the game quite a bit. Also, people not dieting again changes that quite a bit. So I still think there's some benefit to having more calories earlier, if anything, for the sleep and not having a big bolus before bed, as we discussed. But as we've also discussed,
Oopsie.
this is a part of nutrient timing, of which is less important than calories, total macros. It's on par maybe with food composition. So it's a much smaller thing. So yeah, anyway, unfortunately, Barnaby, I don't know.
Sorry.
And I haven't been keeping up with Danny Lennon at all, actually, unfortunately. And you've reminded me to need to like go check his stuff out. So I get a reminder. I don't even know if his podcast is still going. I think it is though. Sigma Nutrition.
I think so. I haven't listened to it either. There's just so much. There's so much to kind of stay up to date with. But I'm pretty sure it's still going.
Yeah, and I tend to keep a bit up to date, like with the mass research review, and I can't think of any like big studies that they've looked at recently to kind of dig into this specifically. But anyway, that kind of goes over my thoughts on it. Shall I ask you the next one, because there was nothing to that really?
Yeah, go for it.
_Manji Machine. There's plenty of content on managing fatigue. What are some things you've learned to optimize recovery? The speed of it.
The speed of it.
Oh, you just had a post on this today, Mike.
I did indeed. So I think, well, support. Firstly, check out my Instagram post. So recovery. If you're speaking about injury specifically, then there's different types of support that you can receive. But if we're talking about training outside of an injury, it goes without saying your big rocks of sleep, good kind of, I guess, training programming, adapting as you need to. Into what have I learned to optimize recovery? Do you know what it? For me, it is just genuinely just don't undervalue sleep. Like, really, just don't undervalue how powerful it is. Like, if you're well slept, you'll feel great. You genuinely will. And there will be times when you need to pull back a little bit, when the training stimulus and stress just gets on top of you a little bit, knowing that when lifestyle stress kicks up a little bit, that does affect your general recoverability, and so that your training might have to take a hit potentially. But other than that, don't put your eggs on these magic recovery bullets of massage guns or foam rollers or those sparkly things or whatever. It's like, hey, the key things still make the biggest impact.
I actually love this question because I do think there's a lot of content looking at like ways to manage fatigue through training, like RIRs, deloads, rest days, so on and so forth. But something I really try and get clients to focus on is how can we get you training more? How can we get you maximizing your recovery outside of the gym? So we don't have to try and make, well, I don't want to make training any easier. I want training as hard as freaking possible. And it can be harder if you're taking care of everything outside of the gym, where you're growing, recovering, and all that sort of stuff. And you covered some of the basics there, sleep being not basic by any means, but the biggest thing that's going to have the most benefit. And then it's just simply like stress, downtime, stress management, sorry, and like downtime. They're really the big ones. Like you said, there's little things you can be doing, like, like, I don't know, magnesium and ashwagandha. Like, hey, they might modulate stress a little bit. Or I've seen, I don't know if you've seen this, Mike, but some people have been wearing like, I don't actually know what it is. I think it's a compression, like a leg garment, where it's like a compression garment. It's like a machine that like,
oh, like not like a game ready or something like that.
not even sure. But I think there's some research to back those things up. But
Yeah.
they're like minor. The biggest things clients need, like, can do better with is, like you said, sleep. It's always something that basically can always be improved. And the biggest things for people to improve upon first is just giving themselves sufficient time to get to bed, like in bed. That's the first thing. Because you could have the best sleep quality, but if you only got 4 hours, it's no good. So you need to give yourself a sleeping opportunity. And then you look at how can we maximize the quality of that sleep. And most people just need to make sure their room is dark like a cave. Dark, cool, and quiet like a cave. And that's going to really go a heck of a long way, along with a similar wake and bedtime. If you get all those things in place, as long as you don't like abuse caffeine or do any other stupid things in the day, you're going to be in such a great spot. And then I would say most people could do with eating more plants, getting higher amounts of micronutrients in. I don't think it's going to be a game changer, but I just think most people don't eat enough of that stuff. And then making sure to have, in part of your sleep hygiene, an hour, 2 before bed where you can wind down, not eat too much, hopefully. And that's, again, going to maximize your sleep too. But yeah, outside of that, like, I don't know, people have been thinking about saunas, cold plunges, any of that stuff. No, I mean, sleep beats all of that stuff out. And so many of those things are so impractical.
Totally.
Obviously, I think you take ashwagandha. Do you, Mike?
Yeah.
Or not consistently? Yeah. So we both take ashwagandha. But outside of that, there's not any other like supplements I can think of that I take that is really trying to modulate recovery or the speed of it. There's actually, you'll be able to speak to this probably, Mike, is like using ice and cold baths. That sort of thing can, I believe, speed up recovery. Like you can reduce muscle soreness quicker, but for the sake of muscle growth and the adaptation. But if you did need to like perform, for example, I don't know, you trained legs on Friday and you had a football match on Saturday, you might use something like that. But I don't think that's what he's asking for. So
no, but it's a good point, because when I worked at the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, like all of the athletes there, like they'd say, for example, they'd do like an intense swim or a race or something, and then they'd come back to the venue and they'd get in an ice bath. But it's because the next day they had to race and be at their best, like you said, to perform again. So they don't care about muscle, like in that sense. You know, they're not looking to maximize growth, they're looking to perform at a high level.
yeah. Should we get to the final question and
Let's
then
do it.
we're done for all the questions again? We're up to date, which is awesome.
Oh, we're on a roll. So Marcus Russell Fitness asks, descending RIR across each week of the meso like RP, or keeping reps the same and first set to RIR down to 0 RIR across the sets of each exercise? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm not too concerned which one you pick. I think this is one of those, there are many roads to Rome, many ways to skin a cat. You just have to find the one that makes most practical sense to you and that you can adhere well to. For us, we don't tend to focus too much on RIR past week 1. It's a case of we tend to set a proximity to failure that's sufficient to cause and very obvious growth adaptation and make sense for the cost of fatigue that would be generated through that lift. So that sounds, I feel like I said that in a really complicated way, but for like your big compound lifts, a 3 to 2 RIR. For your isolation lifts, 1 to 2. And then from there, that baseline, you look to match or beat performance over the week. So you don't really focus too much on RIRs. And they might come up, they might come down, but you're not trying to really hit a specific RIR at that point. Whereas, so that's somewhat similar, you could say, to the RIR descending week to week approach through RP, which I have used, and I mean, I guess to some extent we continue to use. The other example is keeping reps the same and first set to 2 RIR down to 0 across. So again, that's more static RIR every single week. And I think there is a benefit to periodizing your RIR. I think coming out of a deload, an intro week makes sense because the body has not had the repeated bout effect for a week. It's actually in a very well recovered state, and training now is quite novel. So to create a training stimulus, you don't need quite as much. We're not necessarily shooting for minimum effective volume, but if you shoot for just the week prior to deloading setup, suddenly that's going to be way too much stress because the body isn't well adapted to it. So I think it makes sense to slightly pull back, have an intro week, let the body kick the repeated bout effect in, and then you get more adapted. And every week you're more adapted to that hard training, so you can benefit more from it versus just having a static approach week to week. I don't think that's as effective. I think you'd want to modulate some stressor to put yourself in the best position to be in an adapted state and a recovered state to continue benefiting. Again, I feel like I said that in a strange and complicated way, but hopefully it made sense.
Yeah, I guess just to echo that a little bit, it's like if you keep RIR static and you hit a wall really early in your mesocycle, it is mentally burdensome to just grind away at that like week after week after week. Whereas just giving yourself that, having a more periodized approach and giving yourself a bit more of a runway, as you said, I think it sets momentum up a little bit. It buys you a bit of time in terms of adaptation and allows you to keep going. And I think mentally it's just a bit easier and it sets you up for success a little bit more. I guess from experience, that's what I would say as well.
But I do quite like what was mentioned, and well said, Mike, the thought of leaving a bit more in the tank on the first sets and less in the latter sets. Similarly to periodizing across, I think it makes sense to, I think there is logic and rationale for periodizing your RIR across a mesocycle, leaving a bit more in the tank early on and then going harder later on because you're in a better adapted state to deal with it, and you won't be as well adapted at the start and it'll be too much and you'll be too sore to be able to get in the required work. You might have overlapping soreness and therefore not as good growth and adaptation. I think there is also a benefit to pushing harder later in a session and leaving a bit more in the tank earlier in the session. Same with in sets. So here he's leaving more in the tank earlier within the sets for an exercise and then pushing harder for the latter ones. That's not necessarily something I really objectively program, but I certainly do it for myself sometimes, where I'm just like, if it's the last set on an exercise and I'm very close to failure anyway, I might just take that one to the house. Whereas I won't do that on the first set, especially on a compound lift where it's going to have a high fatigue cost and potentially lead to worse performance for the next ones. I might just take it to a 0 or 1 RER, for example.
Mm. Do you think that's kind of almost what came to my head as you were saying that, is almost listening to your body in a way and going with intuitively what kind of feels right? Like you kind of think it intuitively I feel like in a good state to take this to the house now, and I know that there is nothing that I've got left after this, so I can just go and spend my chips in a way and I'll be fine.
Yeah, it's that second order thinking where you don't just think about, okay, what am I doing here to generate the stimulus today and now in this set, but how's that also going to have a second order effect to everything else later? If it's early within the session and you take that, like, I don't know, deadlift to failure, fuck, that could destroy the rest of the session. Whereas if it's arms at the end of the session, going to 0 RAR, not a big deal. Or even like we often do calves early in the session, taking those to failure, not a problem. But doing like a hack squat to failure, especially in week 1 for the first set of that exercise for that session, that might not be ideal because of the second order effects and the kind of downstream fatigue. Mike, we've probably been chatting too long.
We probably have, but it was good conversations as always.
Yes.
We made it. We made it. We're on a good roll with the questions as well.
Yeah, staying on top of them, guys. Hopefully you appreciate it. And like I mentioned before, if you're listening at this point, you will have already heard. You probably are part of the Hypertrophic Time Chamber. We've got 734 members in there. That's pretty cool. That's, yeah, exciting. So thank you guys for listening. As always, as obviously we mentioned our coaching as well. So if you are interested in getting a coaching call with me or Mike to talk about what we might be able to help you with in terms of growing muscle, losing fat, all that good stuff, taking the stage, photo shoot, just feeling healthier, looking better, we're here to help. Otherwise, is there anything else you want to inform the people, Mike? You mentioned your post, so give your Instagram a shout out at least.
Yeah, so if you're not following me, please follow me on at Mike Revive Stronger. Appreciate you following me along. Lots of mixtures of my physio background and the online coaching as well. So check it out, and that'd be great.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much as always. We'll catch you in the next episode.
See you next week, guys.